I'll give it the shortest way I can. So obviously we embarked on a process on the 6th of April, post our AGM, and post the decisions that were taken at a SANZAR level on the reduction of Super Rugby. I'll go back to the reasons, which most of you know, is the fact that fans and spectators and viewers were disillusioned by the competition, and they were disillusioned by the competition for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, as it was there, it was confusing, it was complex. You could have a team that was lying around about 11th on the overall log, still qualifying to play in a quarterfinals, and there's reasons for all of that. Everybody was not playing everybody in terms of matches. That is the first component of a competition with integrity. You would play New Zealand sides one year and Australian sides the next year. So there was a lot of elements within the competition that wasn't working. Our stakeholders, very specifically the broadcasters and the sponsors, said the competition is not working, we need to change that. So we then embarked on a pretty intense survey on both our fans, our stakeholders, our unions. We appointed an independent company that helped with it. And the plans for Super Rugby post-2020 was actually brought forward a little bit as an interim solution, and we decided to reduce to 15 teams. In the interest of rugby as a whole, we said that we would take 2 teams out, and Australia took out 1 team, so we equivalent on 4 teams. Given the recent results of Australia, there was a lot of questions on why does Australia only lose 1 team, they should be losing 2 teams. The reality of that is if Australia only has 3 teams participating in international rugby, they as a union and as a federation will implode. And if they implode, we don't have opponents and we don't have an Australian team, and we believe we need a strong Australian, Argentinian, New Zealand and South African team to participate against the North. We are as strong as we are because we play those opponents. Japan has been tied into a contract up until 2020, and hence the reason that we couldn't exit them out of the contract. And obviously we've got Argentina and their goodwill and their participation at heart, and they've been good partners, and they're very important for the Rugby Championship. So that's how we got to the 3 teams. We then had to go through a process. We had an agreed upon process which effectively said that within the new structures that we approved at the end of last year, the franchise committee itself will decide on how do we decide on which 4 teams to participate. We set criteria, very specific criteria. We set very specific weighting, very specific measurement tools, and we went through that process over the last couple of weeks, and we had that independently audited on an agreed upon procedure. But in the last 2 weeks, we've been doing a lot of negotiation with all of the different parties, and 2 of the franchises said that they would rather take a strategic decision and preempt any other decisions that might happen. Whether they are part of that decision or not doesn't really matter, and opted to explore options in the North rather than be part of this process where we are at the moment. So we are obviously very grateful towards the Kings and the Cheetahs that have said we will rather endorse South African rugby in their strategic drive to possible other competitions, possible diversity in where we play, and possible proof of concept of whether a venture into the North is a viable venture for South African rugby. So that was done in the last 2 weeks, and effectively made today's meeting a null and void meeting, as there was only 4 members left to participate in Super Rugby, and we just confirmed those 4 members today.
I can ask you a lot of stuff. I'm not a legal person. I want you to answer this question in the most layman's terms as possible, sir. Can you confidently tell me that you guys did not force these people to jump overboard, or was it a voluntary process? And in your answer, was there money promised to these 2 unions, franchises?
Yeah, I can categorically state that nobody was forced into this process. We're South African Rugby. We've 14 members. So we engage with our members, and our members voluntarily made this decision. Voluntary. They could have waited it out. They could have sat here. We've got a confirmed competition structure up until 2020. In reality, all 6 of those entities could have just sat back and said, "No, you do what you want to do, but we've got agreements in place, and we will go and challenge that agreement somewhere in court, etc. This was completely voluntary. In terms of money being promised, there is no other money flowing than the money that we're receiving in terms of our broadcasting. You saw our financials last year. We were probably in the darkest place we've ever been. Last year, I think we're about 85% of turning that around. But the principal decision in terms of South African rugby is that money will flow the way money is earned. So only money that will flow is the money that is earned in terms of a competition or any new competitions.
And once again, I'm not sure if you can confirm this answer. Can you confirm that these two franchises might possibly play in Europe in the Pro 12 or Pro 14 competition? And second question, SA Rugby and Alistair Coetzee have been preaching, I'm using the word preaching, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they are trying to encourage South African players to stay locally so that they can qualify for the national side. Aren't you defeating the purpose now by allowing two prominent franchises to play overseas? Will they then easily still qualify for the national side though? Stephen Kitzel was forced to come back to South Africa to qualify for
don't interpret. That's your personal opinion. Nobody was forced to do anything. We live in a country with a pretty obvious democracy and a constitution, so you choose what you do. The reality of where we are is I cannot confirm that they are playing in Pro 14. What I can confirm is that there is negotiations happening in terms of competitions north that are extremely far down the line. And to be fair, guys, we're all intelligent people over here. You're never going to steal the thunder of any other competition in terms of their announcements. It's as simple as that.
Will it mean that those two teams are going to play maybe in the same competition or in different competitions?
They could play in the same competitions, and they could play in more than one competition. But those negotiations is going pretty well. And the reality is for very obvious reasons, I can't confirm which competitions that is, and I'll just keep on saying that I've got no comment on that. In terms of the reality of where we are, I think we're making the right strategic moves. I really do. The media, you guys yourselves, every guy that writes in the paper, for the last probably 7 years that I've been involved with South African rugby, every second month people are preaching on the fact that we should leave SANZA, we should go north, we should go play the international teams. It's the same time zone, it's an easier flight, it's less travel, it's better for our players, etc. Everybody's advocating that. We've never had proof of concept that on any level. We don't know whether that's going to work in terms of viewership, spectators. Are people interested in seeing us playing at Toulon or Toulouse? Are people really interested in that? Are they willing to look at that? We look at the viewership numbers of South African spectators and viewers on the Sunday games that are taking place on European Rugby Championships. And the numbers are scary in terms of their growth there. So we obviously got some strategic incline that might work. Second of all, we go on a year-end tour every year. The first two matches, our players are struggling. They're really struggling in terms of adapting and the circumstances in those countries. Having two teams playing north affords us the opportunity, and for the first time affords us the opportunity to actually look at our own structures, possibly in the spreading of our players in the first instance, choosing make-fit players, choosing all of the fast and the quick players for all of the Southern Hemisphere tournaments, and choosing all of the maybe not slower, but a bit more bigger and aggressive and tactically more astute for the Northern Hemisphere. And we can actually get our franchises to work together and spread the players across the board, like New Zealand is doing, and making sure we're playing players in the right environment and in the right direction. On not having them selected, I would urge you to look at the teams that have played. I would urge you to look at the friendlies that we've played against the European sides by our franchises. The quality of rugby is a high quality of rugby. People are talking about the different leagues. If you think about the last couple of champions of European Rugby Championships, Saracens is about twice. I think there's about 3 Irish teams in there, Munster, Leinster, etc. So I think the quality of rugby in the north should not be underestimated, and the national teams are proving it at this stage. So for us, we rather have a player playing in a South African franchise in the Northern Hemisphere and then playing in a Northern Hemisphere side in the Northern Hemisphere. By that, he's actually getting two things. He's still in the South African picture and can still be selected. And there's no reason why we won't select somebody playing in the north. There's actually just no truth in that. We've got the rule about 30 games, and there's every indication that will become increasingly more and not less, just out of logistic reasons. And you even saw in this inbounds now, we only selected 2 overseas players. So we are asking our players to stay in the country. We're saying we're now giving you the different options in terms of where we play. You can either play north or south, depending on your own circumstances and what is ideal for your family. The part we need to get to, guys, and we all know that is at some stage we need to get the rand equal to the euro or the pound, or we need to pay more. That's the reality. Now, the rand getting equal to the euro or the pound, I won't venture on that, but I do know that the retention of our players is top of mind. And obviously in this whole process, we engage with my players, with SARPA, with our national coaches, and we're aligned on the process that we will follow. So nobody will be jeopardized or at a disadvantage in playing any other competition.
The European season starts in about 2 months' time. Are the teams are the Cheetahs and the Kings looking to get into the competition
I'll answer that the best way I can, as soon as possible, and at the first opportunity we can get.
Jurie, we've seen over the past few months how well the Kings have done, and also the boom of rugby in the Eastern Cape. What will happen to, I'm going to say, fill that gap now that there's not a Super Rugby team?
Well, there's still an international team that is going to participate in international competition. So I think that is exactly the point. To be fair to the Kings, they've always had a team that had to fix at the last minute. Now they've had 2 seasons, and you can see the results of 2 seasons. I mean, that's a happy family. They play for each other. I think they surprised a couple of people. I think their coaching staff is underestimated. To have far less resources than anybody else and to be able to participate at that level, we have to give some credit to the management and the coaching staff there as well, but a lot to the players. And that's the reason why we're exploring all of these northern options. So we will just replace one competition with another competition, hopefully, and make those announcements very soon. And we'll have international rugby being played in the Eastern Cape, which is hungry. Our easiest test to sell out is when we go to PE. PE always sells out, and that is because the people are hungry and they support rugby in that environment. And rugby actually is a dominant sport in the Eastern Cape, not second to football like in most other regions. It's a dominant sport. So, and as you all know, and you've all read the releases, the local government over there is helping a lot and getting them back onto track and getting them out of their current liquidation process. And that will actually happen within the next 14 days. So I think the things are looking up for them.
Okay, last one. Who is in charge of the negotiations to play Northern Hemisphere? Are you SA Rugby driving it, or do the unions themselves, or the franchises themselves drive the negotiations?
In terms of how South African rugby structure works, all the unions cede their rights in terms of competitions, broadcasting, etc., to the South African Rugby Union.